Let's continue with our merge letter and fix the problem with the blank page. If you remember, we added in our notes, which we had to accommodate. We might have a paragraph of notes or a whole page of notes. And when we did that, when we accommodated for it, we pulled the body part down. It made this blank page before the next letter. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. We'll exit preview mode. And what we want to do is use sliding objects. All you have to do is select all your objects, and we only have one here because we have one text block. And then what you want to do is show your inspector and go into your position section. In position, you'll see sliding and visibility. And remember, we covered hide when printing here. Well, above here, we said we cover this later. Now we're going to cover this. We have sliding left, which we're not going to use here, but it could be helpful if we want to reduce the space between two regular fields. We don't really need it for merge fields because they slide left already. But let's say you had two fields, the first name and the last name, right next to each other. Well, you don't want it to be John and then a lot of spaces in Osborne. You want it to be John and then one space in Osborne. And so to slide through that unused field space, slide to the left, you'd check that option. You'd select those fields and do that. What we're going to do here, which is a little bit more common, is slide up based on. So we have slide up based on all objects or only objects directly above. Now the most common choice is all objects above. That's what I use 99.9% of the time. In fact, I can't really remember a situation where I used only objects directly above. But it would come in a situation where you had columns. But usually that's not the case where you're setting up such a complicated layout that you're going to have these objects slide independently. Usually everything slides together. Slides all on one section, goes up at the same time. And then what we're also going to want to do is also resize enclosing part. If we don't do that, everything's going to slide, but that body part is not going to move with it. You want that body part to move along with it so that it reduces that and takes away that blank page. Now, where you would keep this unchecked might be on a label layout, because labels, like we did before, the Avery 5160s, they have to be in a certain spot on each part of the page. If we slide up, then it's going to make them drift up, and that's not good. We don't want that to happen. But in here, we do want to reduce the size of the enclosing part and have that body part move up. So we'll go ahead and close this, and let's go ahead and take a look at it. But before we do that, let's take a look at our badges here. Remember, we have the badges. We have the show sliding objects right here. If we choose that and scroll down here, we'll see a little arrow showing that it's sliding up, and if we had sliding left, it would have an arrow going that way. Just wanted you to see those badges so you knew what was going on. Just one of those indicators that helps you know, oh, this is sliding. So we'll go into preview mode, and everything looks the same on the first page, but let's go to the second page. And you notice that now we have no blank page. That's because we slid up and reduced the size of the enclosing part. Now if we go back into layout mode and take a look at this, remember that when you're sliding, it only slides up through the unused space in that field or that object. So if our object was up here, it's going to slide through unused space, but this space between the body and the bottom of that object, that won't slide. That'll always stay there. So make sure you have the objects filling up your entire body part. Typically that's the case always. Your body part is just a little bit bigger than the parts that are included in it. So if you have some problems, you're going, wow, it's not sliding all the way, make sure your objects are the same size as your body. Let's go take a look at some other features here. Let's talk about tabs. I'm going to double click on our text block, and right before happy, I'm going to type a tab. And then right before John, I'm going to type a tab, and then type tab again down here. And what has happened is it's tabbed to the default tab, which is 1/2 inch. You can kind of see that up here with the graphic rulers. Well, I think what's going to show this better is by viewing our text rulers. So we're going to show those. You can see it's right at 1/2 inch. See how the ruler starts from here rather than over here. So I like that much better. But what if you don't want it to be at 1/2 inch? Well, first thing you have to do is remember that each return creates a new ruler. So we don't want to set each of these individually, we want to set them together. So we'll highlight all three of these paragraphs, all three of these rulers, and then decide where we want that indent to be. We might want it at 1.5, so let's try clicking there. And what happens is it immediately obeys that new tab. The default is gone except for another tab that might go on here. And so that's great. We can move it around if we want. Move it over here and see how it looks. Just as long as we have this whole thing highlighted here. And then if we go, well, I want it exactly 1.5 inches, you can double click on this and you bring up this tabs dialog. And you can come in here and type in 1.5. And if you hit set, then it's going to change it. If you don't hit set, it's going to add another tab on there. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. See how it's set it to 1.5, but if I double click on it and go 2 and click OK, you're going to get another tab. And it's easy enough to get rid of that tab. You just drag it down out of the ruler and it'll disappear. Now, you may find this feature works well in some situations, but in other situations you may find a better way to do this. Let's get rid of the tabs and actually go ahead and delete the tab character out of there. And let's also go ahead and just one quick little, let's take a step back here a little bit. Let's go ahead and click in here. And remember there's a center, a right, and a line on. We're going to cover a line on later, but we really didn't cover center tabs and right tabs. But if you're familiar with any type of word processor, this is exactly the same thing. In fact, we'll cover fill characters also. Really, you should be familiar with this. Once I show you how to do it once, you can choose all these different types of tab characters and apply them to what you want to do. So I'll cancel that and get rid of this little tab character. So we're going to show you a different way of indenting this, which may be easier in this situation. Just highlight all these rulers here and then drag this out to where you want it to be. There you go, 1.5 inches. Easily done. I can drag wherever I want, and that may be the best way to do this. You can also drag these independently. If you have a paragraph, we can come in here and say, okay, I want this to be indented, right? So I just move the top portion of it. So that's one way to do that also, to indent each paragraph as you go along. So let's take a look at this. We'll go into preview mode. And it's starting to look pretty good. I like the way that looks, but if you want to go ahead and modify a little bit, just go back to layout mode, try changing it, go back to preview mode, and you go out between these modes quite a bit.